So here. Hide the words and seal the book until the time of the end. For many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Gimel. Gimel, remember, goes back and forth like a camel. It says, so I, Daniel, looked, and I saw one on this side of the river and one on that side of the river. If you look from this side to that side, your head's going back and forth. So the idea here in a gimel is back and forth. Bet is some kind of a container, and remember, this is like the embryonic shape, right, which is container of life. And Aleph, remember, is like this ox head. And then I saw one above the waters of the river, clothed in white linen. The next letter is a dalet. Remember Yeshua said, I'm the door? Dalet's a door. So let's just say, for example, this might be Yeshua. Yod, He, Vav, Shin, Ayin. He's the one above. Waters, in prophetic terms, speaks of people. He's the one above all other people, the exalted one, clothed in white linen. White linen speaks of robes of righteousness. And then Daniel says, hey, how long to the end of these wonders? He's asking for a revelation. And this one, who was above the waters of the river, clothed in white linen, held up his right hand and his left hand. Hey, that's a picture of the letter Vav. And he swore by him who lives forever. Well, to swear is a vow. That's number 7, which is a weapon. It fits the pattern of exactly what he's saying. Then it would be for time times and half a time. Well, he's now giving a constraint, a space. He's putting it in another little box. Here's the little box, which is the letter Het. Time times and half a time. Until the completion, well, remember Tet's a full basket. Remember, Tav is the sign of the fullness, the completion. So here's, the Tet is actually a circle with a Tav in it, which means a full basket. Upon the completion of the fragmenting of the hands of the Kadosh people, till all these things be accomplished. So Tet's related to the Het. He said it'll be time to halftime until the whole thing happens. And then Daniel says, I heard, but I couldn't grab it. I couldn't get it. He said I didn't understand. Well, the letter Yod is a hand that grabs. I couldn't understand. The letter Kaf is an open hand. So he asked again, could you please tell me again? Could you give it to me once more? To when, till all these matters become accomplished? And he says, go, Daniel. Lamed, the shepherd's staff, the authority. Go. Lecha, go. Mem. For the words are hidden and sealed until the time of the end. Mem, like a womb, hidden and sealed until the time that they will be birthed. Nun is an action like a lightning bolt, like a stinger, like something happening. They will be elucidated and clarified and refined by many. That's an action. People will be, what? Making up translations and giving sermons and talking about this and talking about that and always trying to find, what are these words? But remember, they're hidden and sealed by Daniel, at the authorization of Gabriel, empowered by Yod-Heh-Vav. And the wicked will do wickedly. Well, in the position of the Samik is a metaphor of good stewards doing goodness or bad stewards doing wickedly. It's like a mast on a ship pulling along to do evil or to do good. It's one who is responsibly, it lines up with the menorah, which we'll get to in a minute, where Yeshua says, I'm the shemesh, the servant candle in the middle, I'm the vine, you're the branches, and if you guys, as he says in Revelations, do not bear good fruit, your lampstand will be extinguished and somebody else will be put in your place. But the wicked shall do wickedly. It has to do with doing what he said to do. Given the position, given the opportunity, as principalities are positioned as rulers over kingdoms. Either do what he said or you don't, but you're given the opportunity to at least be on stage, do your stuff. What are you going to do? Here's your opportunity, here's your chance. You learn the instructions. What are you going to do now? That's some. And none of the wicked will understand. The letter Ayin is understanding. They just don't get it. The words have been hidden and sealed. But the righteous will understand. Pay. Why? Why would the righteous understand have to do with the letter pay? Because it's his mouth of instruction. It's regarding his words that we thought were done away with. Then here's this phrase. From the time the daily offering was removed and the mute abomination put in place. The next letter is Zadi. From the time the daily offering was removed. What's the daily offering? Well, this is in English. We have to look at it in Hebrew to get more substance to it. But the daily regard, the daily, what do you give to Yahweh? Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Why is it that the Jews say that once a day, or 3 times a day, or 7 times a day? Or why do they keep? Because they're trying to regard their life as unto Yahweh. The daily offering is us regarding his words and his majesty. And this phrase says, from when that was removed and the mute abomination of desolation, is another way to phrase it. The abomination of desolation, the mute abomination. I'll show you in a minute that this lines up with the 10 Commandments in the Ark of the Covenant. Words of life. The words that open up and cause the resurrecting of his people have been muted by an abomination of defilement which causes the desolation of his kingdom, just like he said in the entire Torah and through all the Nevi'im. Everything he says in this book says, you regard his words, it sprouts unto life, he will restore, he will regenerate, he will renew, he will give the covenant back to his people, and if we cancel and abominate and annihilate his words, it brings death, destruction, everything shuts down, and we're taken over by our enemies. It's exactly this picture in exactly this place. And then he gives another overview of time. He says, is 1,290 years. Well, an overview of time is like this extent is the letter in the position of the letter Kuf. Remember, the Het Kuf is one extent. This is times and a half a time. And this is 1,290 years. Praiseworthy. That's an exalted man. Praiseworthy is he who awaits, Resh, praiseworthy, and reaches 1,335 years. And then he says, as for you, go to your end and rest. Sheen. Sheen is a fire. It's teeth. It speaks of the spirit, where Mem is water and speaks of the flesh. Sheen is this zigzag pattern, like walking out. Walk out your days. Go to your end and rest. As a matter of fact, the word for rest, to go back to your home and rest, is Shabbat, which is Sheen Bet. That's sit down and rest, but the Sheen Bet Tav is Shabbat. Go to your end and rest. Then arise to your portion at the end of days. That's the promise, Tav, that you will arise to your portion at the end of days. That's the end of the book of Daniel. That's the end of the chapter. But look, every single word that Daniel said, click, 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 is embedded and coded according to the Hebrew alphabet. According to the meanings of the pictures, if you can see them in the Paleo, but you can't necessarily see them in the modern, and you certainly don't see it in English letters or Greek. Because they've changed the order. The Greek unplugged the letter digamma, which is the equivalent of the letter Vav, which is the 6th letter, so it shifts everything between the 7th letter is actually 8th, the 8th is actually the 9th. And everything's scrambled in the other languages, but not in Hebrew. It fits perfectly. But you have to see what Daniel said according to concepts, because they're pictures. Now, a whole nother way to read it is to go back and read the actual words and see other pictures. For example, this word that says, many shall run to and fro. Well, the word for running to and fro. And this is a whole different way to read the language. Yod, Shin, Tet, Tet, Vav. Now, if you're illiterate and you don't know how to read, those are just letters. What do they mean? Well, Yod is a hand, or a tool, or a handle, or an arm. You'll see even in the dictionary, look at the word Yod, it's spelled Yodalet. Shin is teeth or fire. A handle of fire sounds like a torch. It sounds like, or yet it could be this, the hand is a power or a strength or a portion. So here's that of powerful teeth, like a torch. That sounds pretty aggressive. That looks like, you know, somebody's coming to do you some tribulation. Tet, these are like shields. 2 shields, a seal. The chet, the tomb, had a big round rock rolled in front of it. The tomb was sealed, it was sheltered, you were locked in. And Vav is a man. Here's a man behind 2 tets. Looks to me like, as a picture of the man behind the 2 shields is safe from the aggressive teeth, the fiery tribulation, the hand carrying the torch outside. That reminds me of the book of Revelation. Who will be preserved? Those who keep the commandments of the covenant and the testimony of Yeshua. What's the testimony of Yeshua? Is it that he was the Christ? That's the testimony about Yeshua. But his testimony was, keep the Torah and the prophets. On these 2, loving Yahweh and loving your neighbors yourself, hang all the Torah and the prophets. What does that look like? Here you have a yoke. You might say, and on these 2 hang the Torah and the prophets. And Yeshua said, well, there's another place, I think it's in Jeremiah, where he says, you guys have broken the yoke by cutting the straps. Well, if you think of breaking a yoke as cracking the crosspiece, that's one thing. But you can break a yoke simply by cutting the straps. What have we been told? There's no Torah and prophets. Yoke's broken. But Yeshua said, take my yoke on you. It's easy and light. Is it easy and light because there's no Torah and prophets on the yoke? That's a broken yoke. He didn't say, take my broken yoke upon you. He says, take my yoke upon you, on which hang the Torah and the prophets. The Torah and the prophets are light. But what is the yoke on which hangs the Torah and the prophets? Right here. Ve'ahavta et Yahweh Elohecha ve'kol avivka ve'kol nafshecha ve'kol me'otaka. Love Yahweh, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your, the word is mayod, where we get the word mad. M-A-D, mem aleph dalet, which is your madly. Love him madly. On these 2 hang the Torah and the prophets. How do you love Yahweh your Elohim? We'll get to that in a minute. Take a break. Is it time to go? It's 6 o'clock. It's after 6. We're going to get going. Sharon, 6 o'clock.
Who wants to hear more? Yay! Who wants to stay later?
Woo!
Who wants later?
How about Darla? Sorry.
I'm here. I'm good.
Oh, you're back there. Do you know the way to get to their house? I don't know how to get there.
Maybe I'll take a 5-minute break.
Okay, so that works okay for you? Okay, up until what time should we be there?